Caddyshack made $60 million on a $6 million budget. It has never left the cultural conversation in 45 years. Every golfer knows it. Every dad quotes it. But here is what nobody talks about. The movie you love was never supposed to exist. Bill Murray was not supposed to speak. The gopher was a hand puppet made of mink fur, and the most iconic character in the film was invented by a man who hated the movie and was trying to shut it down. There is a band ending buried in the original script. There is a 4.5-hour cut nobody has ever seen. And there is a chain of events that starts on a cocaine-soaked golf course in Florida in 1979 and ends with one of the most important moments in music history. Here is the question. What if the Caddyshack everyone loves is actually the backup plan? And what if the chaos that replaced it accidentally changed American music forever? Stay with me, because this is going to get strange. The three writers, Harold Ramis, Doug Kenny, and Brian Doyle Murray, all grew up caddying at country clubs outside Chicago. The Murray brothers, the Ramis family, all of them. So when they sat down to write, they wrote what they knew. A coming-of-age story about teenage caddies. A kid named Danny Noonan trying to scrape together money for college. That was always the movie. The script was 200 pages long. Chevy Chase was a minor supporting character. Dangerfield was background color. And Bill Murray had a small role with no speaking lines. None. The original ending had Danny at the airport, heading to college, when he spots a woman going to Jamaica and abandons his future to follow her. There was also a Casablanca-style walk-off between Chase and his love interest. A real movie. A coherent movie with an actual ending. They threw all of it out in the first week. The production moved to Florida to avoid studio interference. And from day one, the set was not a film set. It was a party with cameras. The producer, Doug Kenny, was deep into cocaine. Chase had it materializing on set constantly. Murray showed up when he felt like it. Ramis was a first-time director with an improv background who said yes to everything. Nobody followed the script. Chase improvised every scene. When Ramis called action on Dangerfield's first scene, nothing happened. Dangerfield did not know what action meant. Ramis walked over and explained. Dangerfield said, "You mean do my bit?" From that point on, Ramis stopped calling action entirely and just yelled, "Rodney, do your bit." By the time they wrapped, they had a disaster. 4 separate comedy showcases with no story, no main character, and no ending. The Danny movie was gone. The love story had no weight. The scholarship plot was background noise. The first rough cut came in at 4.5 hours. Murray's Cinderella story speech alone ran 30 minutes in the uncut version. The studio watched the cut and hated it. Multiple editors came in. None of them could find the movie inside the footage. The scenes were brilliant, but there was nothing holding them together. This is where Caddyshack should have died and been forgotten forever. Before we go further, I want to ask you something. The original Danny movie, the coming-of-age story where he follows the woman to Jamaica instead of going to college. Do you think that version would have been better than what we got? Let me know in the comments, because I think people are genuinely split on this. The man who saved Caddyshack was not Ramis, not Kenny, not any of the comedians. It was John Peters, the producer everyone hated. He and Doug Kenny had been in open warfare the entire production. The crew despised him. The writers despised him. Peters looked at the wreckage of the 4.5-hour cut and said one thing: use the gopher. The gopher. During filming, Murray had acted out every gopher hunting scene completely alone. There was no gopher. The only one that existed was a mink fur hand puppet in a single scene. Murray had been chasing nothing, talking to thin air, waging war against an imaginary animal. Peters said, make it real, make it a character, a thread that runs through the whole film and gives audiences something to follow. The problem was they did not have a gopher. To build an animatronic one that could move and dance, they needed to go back to the studio and ask for more money, $500,000 more, for a puppet. The studio, which had just watched a 4.5-hour unwatchable disaster, was being asked to spend another $500,000 on a dancing rodent. They said yes. They brought in John Dykstra to build the gopher. Dykstra had just come off Star Wars, where he helped create the visual effects that won an Academy Award. A Star Wars guy built the Caddyshack gopher. They shot all new footage, Murray hunting it, the gopher popping up, the gopher dancing. For the ending, they blew up a real section of the golf course, while Peters took the country club owners out to a long lunch to keep them away. The explosion was so big that a pilot approaching Fort Lauderdale Airport radioed in to report what he thought was a plane crash. The gopher became the spine of the movie, the thing that made all the disconnected scenes feel like they belonged together. A character that was never in the script, invented in a panic by a man everyone hated, became the most beloved thing in the film. Peters also realized he had forgotten to commission a soundtrack. The entire film was finished with no music. He called Kenny Loggins at the last minute, described the gopher dancing out of a golf hole, and Loggins wrote "I'm all right." In response to that description, the gopher produced the theme song too. The original ending, Danny at the airport, the Casablanca walk-off, all of it was gone, replaced by a dancing rodent, an explosion, and a Kenny Loggins song written in a panic. Now here is where it gets genuinely strange. Murray's Cinderella story speech. The whole scene where he is alone on the course, talking to himself, like a sports announcer, while swinging at flowers, fully improvised, 6 days on set total. Ramis gave him 2 sentences of direction. Murray just went. The uncut version ran 30 minutes. What is in the film is 2.5 minutes, and it is one of the greatest comedy scenes ever put on screen. That scene exists because of a comedy tradition that ran directly through Mel Brooks and Gene Wilder. In 1974, Mel Brooks released Young Frankenstein. There is a scene where Igor greets Dr. Frankenstein at a train station and says, "Walk this way," then walks with an exaggerated hunchback limp. The joke is that Frankenstein copies the walk. That same year, Aerosmith was stuck in a New York studio with no lyrics for a song they had been working on for weeks. The music was done. The riff was locked. Tyler had nothing. A few of the band members took a break and walked around Times Square. Young Frankenstein was playing. They went in. They watched Igor say, "Walk this way." They went back to the studio and told Tyler. He had his title. He had his attitude. Walk This Way was finished that night. The song came out in 1975, medium hit. Then, 11 years passed. Aerosmith fell apart. Drugs. Failed albums. They were a band that had seen better days. Then, Rick Rubin called from a college dorm room and asked them to record Walk This Way again with Run DMC. Nobody thought it would work. They did it anyway. The 1986 version of Walk This Way is credited by music historians as the moment that broke the wall between rock and hip-hop. 2 audiences that had never shared a song shared that one. The Grammy Hall of Fame inducted it in 2014. It is one of the most consequential songs in American music history, and it traces back to a joke in Young Frankenstein, which traces back to the comedy tradition that produced Bill Murray's Cinderella story speech, which traces back to a production falling apart in Florida that needed something alive and improvised to hold it together. A 4.5-hour cocaine disaster that almost never became a movie sits somewhere in the DNA of every rock and hip-hop crossover record ever made. Here is what I keep coming back to. The real Caddyshack was a responsible movie about a kid making responsible choices. The ending they wrote had Danny doing the right thing. It was tidy and earned and completely forgettable. The movie that replaced it was made by people ignoring the script, showing up late, doing their bit instead of their lines, and blowing up golf courses while the owners were at lunch. Danny's original ending had him abandon the responsible path for a stranger going to Jamaica. That was supposed to be the lesson. Follow your instincts over your plan. Caddyshack made the same choice. It abandoned the plan. It followed the chaos. And the chaos won. 45 years later, nobody remembers the Danny movie. Nobody remembers the 200-page script. Nobody remembers the original ending. They remember a gopher dancing on a golf course. They remember a man talking to himself about the Masters. They remember a Cinderella story coming out of nowhere to win. The movie had to destroy everything they planned before it could become what it needed to be. Now settle something in the comments. Cinderella story or the Dalai Lama speech, which Bill Murray improvised moment from Caddyshack, is the greatest comedy scene in movie history. Pick your side and fight about it. If this gave you something you did not know, hit like and subscribe. We do this every week for movies that have more inside them than most people ever get to see. The best stuff is always what they almost cut out.